Okay, so welcome to this webinar about the situation on Sudan. We are going to talk about what is happening in Sudan and talk about the delivery of petitions regarding the campaign that we started last year in November by our chapter in Senegal. So today the webinar is being co-organized by World Beyond War. That is the global movement to abolish all wars, and RootsAction, which is an online initiative dedicated to galvanizing people who are committed to economic fairness, equal rights for all, civil liberties, environmental protection, and defunding endless wars. So today we have two parts for the event because we will be online for an hour only. So in the first part, we will introduce our main speakers who will talk about the situation in Sudan and possible next steps of regarding the campaign. And in the second part, with about 15 minutes, we'll be answering some questions or receiving comments from the participants. So we will not have much time for that part, unfortunately. But this is a webinar that is opening spaces for further discussion about the situation in campaign. So we are recording the event. We will send the recording after this session with many other information useful that we can add to this email when we'll send after this. So to start, I want to mention in French, given that we have some participants who are not getting us well in English. I want to say some instructions in French so that it can help those who want to follow the event. Donc, je vous dis merci d'avoir répondu à notre invitation à ce webinaire. La langue d'échange sera l'anglais, mais pour les besoins de compréhension, il est possible à ceux qui ne comprennent pas l'anglais d'activer les sous-titrages en français sur Zoom. Donc, pour ce faire, vous devez voir les boutons d'options où il est possible de voir soit transcription ou bien en français, c'est écrit transcription de la langue. Et à ce moment-là, vous pouvez cliquer sur le choix de la langue que vous souhaitez voir transcrit sur votre écran. Ça vous permettra de suivre en français. Ce n'est pas une traduction parfaite, bien entendu, mais c'est au moins pour rester en contact et savoir que vous suivez tout au moins ce qu'on se dit en ligne. Thank you. So I'm going to actually invite our first speaker, who is the chapter coordinator of World Beyond War in Senegal, who launched this campaign a year ago, the campaign Hands Off Sudan. I don't know if Sudan Boji Juf is online already. Is the chapter coordinator of Senegal online already to unmute and okay, while expecting her to join us, we are going to listen to Manal Taha. Manal Taha is one of our speakers today, but who cannot join on live, unfortunately, because of connectivity issue. Manal is an anthropologist, a conflict analyst, and leader of the Women, Peace and Security and Civilian Inclusion in Sudan Peace Process. She's going to speak in 8 minutes on what's the current situation from her perspective in Sudan, what is going on today in Sudan. I'm going to play this video from Manal so that we can hear from her what's the situation in Sudan. Let us go.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like first to talk about the Sudan war, and I will go a little bit beyond the context now, what's happening. I will start with the actors and some of the conflict analysis, and also their interest and the needs, and also connecting it also to what's happening now on terms of the initiatives to resolve this conflict. So let me start by who is the actors. The actors are the two main actors. However, now it's changed and became too many actors. You have the what they call it Rapid Support Forces, which is RSF. I'm going to refer it to RSF, which are the paramilitary group, and they used to be part of the government, and just historically they are the same group, the same paramilitary that been used by previous regime in their hybrid security regime, to prevent and to balance the power. So Omar al-Bashir is the previous president of Sudan, who was controlled Sudan for 30 years, used this paramilitary group to control and to balance the power for his enemies inside the army and inside Sudan. He used them in his war against Darfurian rebels. However, after revolution, they've been identified as officially paramilitary. They are fighting against the the Sudan Army Forces, who I'm going to refer it as SAF. So you have RSF and then you have SAF. SAF is the National Army. What drives them? SAF is controlling Sudan since the independence. Like, we have a lot of coup. We have some three democratic transitional governments that been elected. However, the army never let it go and never let the democracy to take its time. They will have a coup and control. Now they are competing. There's a power struggle between the RSF and SAF. RSF is headed by Hemeti, and also SAF is headed by Burhan. So there was a fight started early April, mid-April 2023, and continued up to now. This war will never continue unless there is some regional interventions and support for both sides from the regional countries based on their interest and what they want from Sudan. Here it will lead us to the resources, competition over resources. Sudan, number 9 on the gold on the world, number 4 in the gold in Africa. Also, Sudan has the Red Sea, which is the biggest, one of the main corridors for the Navy trade. 20% of the global trade goes through Red Sea. So competition on the Red Sea and the geopolitics on this area, it's important in this. Who is controlling the Sudan is going to control the Red Sea. And some of the allies of the RSF, some of allies of SAF, they want to control the resources, including the land, including the sea, and also including the gold. However, the war started to have a different dynamics, which is the local tribal tensions. And ethnic polarization is very high. It's driven by the competition on the ground. And the war started to take a regional identity war. And also it's a proxy war. because it has many actors that outsiders, and it maintains itself. And the level of the cruelty and violence in this war is never recorded in our lifetimes. Rape, women were subject for rape, 1 years old subject for rape. When I say rape, gang rapes, women were being sold for sexual slavery. So that's happened, and then you have a humanitarian crisis. 25 million people in Sudan now, they are in need in security. They are in security, food security, critical situations. So there's no a lot of working on the civic groups and civil society on the ground, because most of the fund that USAID has a big bunch of the support for that is no longer exist. Sudanese have the resilience. They start to go back after displacement. We have almost 17 million people displaced. Once the militia control one big of the region, when I say militia, I mean RSF, that the paramilitary is no longer paramilitary, because the government or the SAF or the army denouncing their legitimacy by removing them from the official paramilitary to be named like armed groups. So those RSF were controlling the most fertile agriculture regions in the past year. When they removed and they were being taken out, Al Jazeera, which is half of the food of Sudan comes from, now people go back, but they face the issue of there's no support for agriculture. However, there's some attempt to solve these problems now. The U.S. has initiatives led by the Department of State. It's called the Quad, which is 4 countries: Egypt, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. It's still in negotiation. However, lately, the head of the Saudi Arabia, the Prince Crown Mohammed, he met with President Trump and told him about war in Sudan and how it's affecting the whole region. So President Trump said that he will take care of this himself. There's a lot of controversial about this, because it doesn't really touch the root cause of the problems. It doesn't involve the civilians. It doesn't involve women. It doesn't involve the voices of survivors. However, any attempts that want to silence the gun, Sudanese will welcome it, no matter if it is controversial or not. Because as in Sudan, we say if your hand and your leg on a fire is different. If your leg is not a fire, in a fire. الكراع في النار ما زي الكراع برا من النار. The one has a leg on the fire is not the one like the one doesn't have his legs on the fire. So that we are welcoming any initiatives. The African Union is doing their best. However, their approach is being controversial with the civilians, with the Sudan government, and a lot of revision needs to be done for this initiative to be inclusive. And I'm happy to answer your questions. I will be I'm here at the immigration office. Also, we're struggling as Sudanese, because now Sudan is in the list for having issues with, like, Sudanese are not welcome in the U.S. as part of abandoned government nationalities to come to U.S. Anyhow, wish me the luck, and any questions, please send it to me. I'm gonna provide my WhatsApp and to Guy, and he will send me the questions, and I'm happy to record back whatever the answer it is. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. As we heard from Manal, if you have questions, as I see some coming in the chat already, you just write them as you are writing, and I will send them to her. She might have the chance to provide answers, or if not right now, we'll send her feedback after this event. So I'm grateful that you are listening and participating through the chat box. Now I'm going to invite Mr. Samba Balde, who is the co-founder of Wincousin Africa Trade and Investment Promotion, concerned about conflict and instability in Africa, particularly the current situation in the East. So, Samba, we're going to explore some of the what is seen in the Sudan now, and bring some constructive approaches that are worth considering in the current context of the conflict in Sudan. Yes, Samba, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Guy, and thank you to all of you for making the time to be here. So like Guy said, my name is Sambo Balde. I am a native of the Gambia, but I live in the United States. And I am also a politician here in the United States. I have served in our state legislature and also at our city council for over a decade now. So I see the interest in Sudan. I have been in public service, like I said, for over a decade, but I have never seen any forum or discussion where people from all over the world, every continent, I have been reading the messages that comes through the chat. Almost every continent is represented, and is not just represented by one or two or three people, but by many people. So for me, that speaks to the interest in Sudan. But Sudan, as we all know, has become the worst humanitarian crisis in the whole world. But how often do you hear people speak about Sudan? And it is our responsibility as humans to make sure that at least wars are avoided. But first, let's get started with why people fighting in Sudan. Why are they killing each other? Why is the conflict in Sudan? As humans, we have all been endowed with brains and the capability to think and come up with solutions and address what our challenges are. What happened in Sudan, or what is happening there, should have never led to a war at this magnitude, where we are losing hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. Tens of thousands of people are being displaced. Women are abused. There's food shortage. Every kind of catastrophe is happening in Sudan. For what reason? For a simple thing that I believe, something that can be easily solved if people are serious about peace. The issue in Sudan is just about the military and what they call the rapid support forces, wanting to be integrated into the regular military and agreeing on a transitional formula to get to a civilian government. Even kids in the most advanced countries, or in some even developing countries, can come around the situation and chat and get to a solution. Why is it that in Africa, why is it that in Sudan, we cannot do that? And I want all of us to ask ourselves these questions. Why? This is maybe an African problem, but it is also a global problem. And therefore, whether you're an African or somebody who's just interested in peace or somebody who's interested in ending wars, you should ask yourself why. Why is it that this war is happening at this magnitude? The previous speaker did allude to some of the conflicting interests, or at least some interest around the region, basically from the Red Sea to the natural resources that Sudan is endowed with. But should we allow things like that to let us kill each other? Should we allow that to let us kill each other? So the subject is also centered around, where do we stand? Where do I stand? Where do we all stand? So in my opinion, knowing what the problems are, the first thing, I think, is Africans taking leadership in the conflict in Sudan, particularly neighboring states, but generally Africa as a whole. This is an African problem with a lot of external factors. Imagine who is talking about solving the or ending the war in Sudan. Is the Prince of Saudi Arabia, the President of the United States. The President of the United States cannot even take care of this United States. How is he going to genuinely pay attention to what is happening in Sudan and come up with solutions that can really address the problems that the Sudanese people are faced with, or the African continent as a whole is faced with? Where are the African leaders? Where is the African Union? African must start to be serious. I've seen some Africans here who live in the diaspora. Why can't we take leadership? Why is it that we are leasing our lives to others? Since colonialism, since independence, we have refused to be serious about the situation in Africa. We have refused to focus on the challenges that are faced by the African people and address them. Every conflict, every issue, we point to the other person. The white man, the European, the Westerners, and all this kind of stuff. And we do not listen to each other as Africans. When are we going to be serious about this war? Because if we don't, Sudan becomes nothing. The whole African continent is set to extinct. With all the problems that are happening in the world, global warming, where food shortage is becoming a serious thing, to everything in this world becoming super duper expensive, where are we headed? On a simple conflict of let's come together and have a timeline on how we get to a civilian rule is leading to over 400,000+ people being killed. African leaders cannot come to the table or bring people to the table to talk about this issue, to address this issue. What can we address? What can we fix as Africans? So my approach to this thing is mainly what is the role of the African Union, all these ECOWAS, African Union, all these sub-regional groups and continental groups. What are they doing? Why can't they have an agenda for Africa? But they are there sitting in Ethiopia, worshiping the people who are giving them money and corrupting them, as opposed to really fighting for the issues that serve the betterment of the African person. That needs to change. And that can only change through the diaspora Africans participating and paying attention to what is happening in Africa. Our leaders are failing us. And they are failing us because they know there's no accountability. Why is it that they are worshiping the World Banks of the whole thing, all these international agencies? Why is it that they would worship and listen to them, but they are not listening to the Africans? This is simply because they know there's accountability. If they don't listen to them, they'll stop giving them money. Look at how the Africans behave when Donald Trump stopped all these gift money projects that they were putting in their pockets. They all line up to say, we will nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize. When Africa is burning, you come to Washington, D.C., the only thing you talk about is worshiping the biggest dictator in the United States history. We have to be serious. We got to be our own saviors. We got to know that the rest of the world is serious. And we got to know that the rest of the world is not coming to fix Sudan. The rest of the world is not going to fix Africa. Most of the technology that is happening now get their resources from Africa. You think they would prefer that the continent be peaceful so they can come and get these resources in a legal way? Or you think coming there and robbing it out of the Africans is the best approach for them. You ask yourself these very pertinent questions and try and find genuine answers without being biased without being biased. African must be serious. We must be serious. Otherwise, there's nobody who can stop what is happening in Sudan. Every day, you hear Israel, you hear Palestine. Every day, you hear Russia, you hear Ukraine. You never hear Sudan, even from the Africans, whether they're in the diaspora or they're in the African continent. Challenge yourself. We got to solve this on our own. Nobody's going to save us. So as far as the issue, for me, I think there are a few things. First of all, I think us, people like me in the diaspora, must take a lead, must have to find a way to be a part of this process. I am not optimistic. There's a path for us to come together and be able to be a part of this solution. Because the African Union is remote controlled. The African in the diaspora is not focused. It's very individualistic. We have not been able to come together and set an agenda for the greater good for the African continent. When are we going to be able to do that? Every other set of people have come together to work with their local government. I mean, local in the sense of their continental government, to develop and grow their communities. The African is the only set of people who are so dysfunctional when it comes to collective interest or the greater good. Individually, you go every, technology, science, and whatever. Myself, I'm a software engineer and a politician. But what am I doing in Africa, really, to help them deal with the challenges that they are dealing with right now, or the challenges that they are faced with? So first, we, the diaspora Africans, and the Africans in Africa who are serious about this war must find a way to come together and make sure that this unnecessary conflict do not happen. Nobody can explain really why 400,000+ people should be killed for the simple reason that a few people disagree to come together and come up with a timetable for a democratic process. It's hard to believe. So we got to be a part of that process. So the other thing for me is really a coordinated approach. The African Union and the regional entities like IGAD must come together and have a single approach, coordinated approach to solving this unnecessary war in Sudan. Civil societies must be part of the process. Women must be part of the process because the women are suffering more than any other set of people. We know in many parts of the world, not only Africa, women face a lot of challenges. And when it comes to a society that is lawless, think about what is happening to them. So you cannot have a meaningful, peaceful process or a meaningful solution to the crisis without civil societies and without women participating. It is also important, really, for a timetable, for a transitional timetable for a civilian transition, to make sure that we transition into a civilian government. A timetable that is authentic, a timetable that is reflective of peace forever in Sudan. And like I said earlier, there must be regional ownership to this problem. Countries like Chad, South Sudan, and Ethiopia, and all these countries, but Africa generally must own this conflict and be interested in solving the problem. So a coordinated effort, an effort, in my opinion, that is led by Africans. Donald Trump and the Prince of Saudi Arabia cannot solve our African problems, in my opinion. So there are a lot of conflict in them leading the effort. So I rather would advocate, basically, like I said, a coordinated effort led by Africa, particularly the African Union, but also the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, but sometimes even them are not acting as a partner with the African Union. So on that note, I just want to conclude by challenging the African diaspora, challenging the African in Africa, challenging every human being around the globe. Like I said, I have been in public domain in politics for over a decade. I have never seen this diversity in terms of participation. If we all come together, even the 80 something plus people who are logged into this, and we say we must end the war in Sudan, and we mean it, we can end it without the African Union. We can end it without Donald Trump. You can end it without any other leader who has a self-interest in this. But how are we going to do it? We must have to come together and be serious about the war and be serious about Sudan and challenge ourselves to the responsibility that we are supposed to make this world a better place for the generations to come. Are we doing that? Are we doing that? So, on that note, I, would be available for questions and answers. I think this would be better in that format where people ask questions or express what they are thinking. So we can have a conversation around that. But I really want to engage through particularly World Beyond War or any other organization to see how we can play a key role in ending this unnecessary war in Sudan. So thank you to all of you, like I said, for being here. There are different time zones. I'm sure some of you are, in bed already or something. So this speaks to the importance of the issue in Sudan and the need for all of us to partner and come together and find solutions to what is happening in Sudan. So thank you.
And thank you so very much, Samba, for your insight and analysis and recommendations about the possible things we can do together to make Sudan the peaceful country that it should be. Thank you so much. And as you can see in the chat, there are many questions from you, so you can go through the questions. And while I'm calling on next speaker, so in the meantime, you can look at the question, and at the end, you can take some time to go through this question and provide some answers. I want to check is Jalela, okay. Jalela is joining us now. Jalela, welcome. Jalela, you are welcome.
Thank you so much. My sincere apologies for being late.
You come at the right time where we were calling, we were expecting you to join. So for the participant, I want to mention that Jalila Sofia is the founder and editor-in-chief of Kandaka Magazine, a platform amplifying Sudanese voices, centering women's leadership and documenting historical truth. So Jalila is going to speak in an update of initiatives that are on the way to end the war in Sudan. So you are welcome to take the floor, Jalila.
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much. And I know I'm joining 30 minutes into this wonderful program, and I look forward to looking back at what some of my colleagues here have to say about the situation in Sudan. And I just really want to thank World Beyond War, for holding this, because the situation, unfortunately, is not getting the attention that it deserves. And quite frankly, I started Kandaka magazine in 2019. Kandaka, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with the term, is really an ancient Nubian word, a word that describes powerful women who, are galvanized to really take ownership of, their communities and their bodies. And it's an ode to the Kandaka warrior queens of Sudan from ancient civilization. So it's a homage to those women. And I think during the you know, um, revolution in Sudan, we saw women really rise up and do whatever they could do to try to ensure that Sudan had a peaceful transition through peaceful demonstrations, whether women were on the front lines protesting or women were, um, you know, cooking, ensuring that protesters, peaceful protesters, had access to food, and physicians providing, aid whenever, people who were protesting were injured. Women have really always been on the front lines, and so Kandaka magazine, no, never we would have never been able to anticipate the fact that. I think that's strong. We had hoped it was our worst nightmare that Sudan would be, in the turmoil it currently faces, across the country. We all know that, the war in Sudan, or wars in Sudan, didn't begin in 2021. They've unfortunately been going on for much longer than that, affecting different groups within the country, especially women in communities like Darfur, and before we were separated in 2011, South Sudan. So that's the history that I really and the tradition that I wanted to honor with the creation of Kendaka magazine. And so I would say, where we are currently looking, because I could detail, I know I joined late, I could detail what our goal was in 2019, I would say till 2021, but really our transition now, since the war began, is really to end the war peacefully. End this war, this horrific war that has claimed the lives of an untold number of Sudanese people, particularly in Al Fashir in the Darfur region. And now Kordofan faces the same type of atrocities and massacres by the rapid support forces that we're seeing. I think in the Darfur region that is spreading eastward towards the capital, where I still have family living right now. Um, and it's a very bad situation, but not nearly as bad as in some other regions to the west, especially particularly in Darfur. So I think our mandate right now, and I think our objective right now, is really to stop or limit arms sales by the United States to the United Arab Emirates, who are the primary supporter of the rapid support forces in Sudan. I think the United Arab Emirates has a great deal of interest, I think, in Sudan, um, predominantly because of its gold, its plentiful gold resources. And so currently there are efforts um, by two senators, one senator, I should say, in particular, and one member of Congress. Her name is Sarah Jacobs, and she is working to really essentially put a ban on arms sales from the United Arab Emirates into Sudan. And so that is Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. She's from California. Any efforts that you all can take, to support and uplift that legislation, this ban on arms sales to the United Arab Emirates could be very helpful, I think. The United States, the Trump administration has been really taking a different stance than the Biden-Harris administration did. Full transparency, I was a Biden-Harris political appointee, working for the Export-Import Bank. And we could get into domestic politics, but the Trump administration did remove Sudan from the list of states who sponsor terrorism, which was a part of our mandate, I think, in 2020. We have Marco Rubio at the State Department now, really to be determined what they are going to do when it comes to the Sudan issue. But, Marco Rubio, at least when he was in the Senate, was helpful. He is aware of the Sudan situation. He is aware of the parties, I think, that are predominantly the United Arab Emirates, as well as the Rapid Support Forces and their human rights atrocities. He is acutely aware. Recently, he did a press conference and he said that he knew who the actors were. Who were fueling the conflict, who were supporting the Rapid Support Forces, but he was not strong enough to say. Um, I don't think he was strong in his words to say, that the United Arab Emirates is supporting the Rapid Support Forces. But we are inextricably tied from the United States. Right now, it seems, to these actors in the Gulf who have a large, I think, a great deal of influence over the way that the West views, these African countries, and Sudan isn't isolated or alone. So yeah, I see questions coming in. I don't want to keep rambling, but I would say the most important thing that we could ask, I think, as a diaspora is concerned, people who love Sudan and would like to see this war end, is really to end the support that the military support, the tangible support that the Rapid Support Forces are getting through the United Arab Emirates and through via the United States, and putting pressure on the U.S. government. The second member that I've said I would mention is Chris Van Hollen. He's from Maryland. He's a senator from Maryland. He's been adamant about trying to get a ban on arms sales to the United Arab Emirates. Now, I will conclude with this. It may not happen. It may not happen. There's another way to go about this. And I think that because of, unfortunately, the diplomatic ties between the United States and the United Arab Emirates right now, the other way that we could see potentially, scolding essentially the United Arab Emirates for their tangible support of military arms to the Rapid Support Forces is through getting the Rapid Support Forces essentially labeled as a terrorist organization. Now, factions and elements of the Rapid Support Forces have been labeled as listed on the states who sponsor terrorism list, or not, excuse me, sorry, I misspoke, have been sanctioned by the U.S. government. However, we really need to have Dagalo Hameti, as many of you probably know him, sanctioned and labeled as a state sponsor of terrorism in his organization. That would have a strong impact on these efforts to at least stop arming the Rapid Support Forces if the United States isn't willing, and they probably will not be willing, to put a ban on arms sales to the UAE. So I'll pause there. I do see some questions, but I want to give it back to our wonderful moderator and continue this discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, Dalila, for your presentation and information. As you said, there are questions for you in the chat. So when we speak, you can go through this question, and at the end, we'll be able to comment on that as well. Yes. So we want to thank you for joining this. This webinar is organized or led by our chapter of World Beyond War in Sudan that started this campaign, Hands Off Sudan, 1 year ago. It's November 2024 when the petition was sent online to call on the government who are fueling this war, particularly to stop sending weapons, stop supporting the war, and definitely to call to an end to this war in Sudan. So we have collected so far 9,363 signatures to the petition, which is a very, very great number. And we think we want to deliver these petitions, and we need your support for that. And after we deliver the petition, the campaign will continue into another phase to focus on increasing international pressure and sustaining global awareness around the situation in Sudan. We want to, when we will send the recording of this webinar, we will indicate a date or a week that we wish to deliver the petitions. And during that week, we want to coordinate an action, maybe send photos, send the petition link again, send any initiative online to call on the attention of the international community of what we are doing on the field. So the petition is still open. So if you want to volunteer for this important step, I'm going to put the email in the chat so that you can contact us and support or deliver a petition. It can be to an embassy of Ukraine, of Russia, of Iran, UAE in the location where you are. Or if you are in these countries, you can send the petition to the government. So, here is the email address in the chat now. Okay. And yes, the petition is still open. So if you want to sign it or to send the link to other people or networks that you know are supporting the end of war in Sudan, you can also share with them this link that I'm also putting now in the chat, so that you can, maybe you can collect 10,000 signatures. I think we can do that. So I want to give the floor back to Samba. You have seen the questions. We still have a few minutes to go. In, let's say, 5 minutes, I think you can go through the questions that were sent to you.
Yeah, so thank you. It's difficult to go through all of them and pay attention to what was being said, but a few that I was able to go through. One of them was asking for donations. So I think you can better answer that question. Somebody wants to donate. How can they donate? I am not sure how. There's another question about ICE and RSF. If RSF could be compared to ICE or something of that nature. So the difference between the United States, and many Africans like to compare the United States to their government. When we elected Donald Trump, a lot of people will laugh at us when we talk to them about democracy in some parts of Africa, because they said you elected Donald Trump. But America has very mature institutions that are there to safeguard their democracy, no matter how crazy their leadership may be in terms of their presidents and some of their elected members. And so ICE is an institution of the American government. Right now, we have the Republican government. We have a Republican government that is instructing ICE to basically go after immigrants, in some cases, just Americans. But there are institutions to safeguard what is happening. As you can see, there are a lot of court cases around what ICE is doing. But the good thing is, once there's a change of government, ICE cannot do what they are doing, because that government will not be Donald Trump's government. But the other thing is that ICE, no matter what happens, will never take over the United States government. RSF has the capability to do that. Or at least, if not, they have weapons, mainly supplied by the West, and so they can destabilize Sudan for the rest of life. ICE do not have that capability. So they cannot be compared. What is happening here as far as ICE is despicable. United States is the only country in the world described as a nation of immigrants. Yes, in any setup, there may be issues here and there. Of course, there are people who live in the United States who are not very well settled in terms of their paperwork and things like that. But that does not make them criminals, or that does not make them not supposed to live in the United States, or things of that nature, or that they should be gone after by ICE. So the two cannot be compared. I think what needs to happen is the Sudanese people the civil societies, women, everybody who is impacted and has a stake in this conflict must come together. And I said this is an African problem. Somebody said no, it's a world problem. But I think Africans have to own it. Yes, it is all our failure as human beings to see our fellow humans being killed in this large number, and basically very little is happening. But again, if Africans, particularly us, the diaspora, we are serious about the African continent and the issues that we are faced with, and our leadership was serious about this war and all the challenges that we face, we probably would never have had a Sudan that is so chaotic in my opinion. And so I still think this is an African issue that needs an African solution. So the other person also asked about the Democratic Republic of Congo solution, if that can be kind of coopted into the whatever solutions that people think we should have for Sudan. I mean, we should look at the best things that came out of that and see how we can carry that towards solving the issue. But I think at the end of the day, the Sudanese military, the whatever is described, the rebel force or whatever RSF want to describe themselves, and all civil societies, women included, have to come to the table and come up with a solution. Whatever that means, whether it is a transitional justice that give everybody a safeguard, because nobody would get away from the table knowing that I will be punished and others will not be punished, and agree to a solution. So we got to sit and talk about these things and make sure that there's something for everybody, just so we can get to a peaceful solution. It's not easy, but we have to come to the table and talk like humans beings and use our brains, so we come up with solutions that can resolve this problem. So the other question that was asked was about Al-Bahran and also Hamdan, who were part of the coup. What should transition look like with those people? Again, I wish they didn't, lead the coup, or that we are not in this situation. But the fact that we are in this situation, I think all of them, everybody must be at the table and talk about a timetable and a transitional framework that would let everybody have some little bit of comfort to move forward. If we do not do that, Sudan will continue to fight for generations to come. So those are the few questions that I was able to pick up from the chat. So if there are any others, or if people had asked questions that are really important, or at least if they would like answers now, I think they should speak up, and I'll give it my best. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, dear Samba. I also want to give the floor to Jalila for the 3 minutes remaining to also go through some of the issues that you see important to address, and particularly a question that was addressed to you.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with the majority of the initiatives I just heard. And what I would say, and I would add to that is, I know that I know I joined late again, but we have a website. It's www.kendacamagazine.com, and I will put that in the chat. But basically, we want to ban arms sales and hold the UAE accountable. Our entire mission is laid out. I'm open to meeting with anyone willing to further these missions. And ultimately, the goal is a transition to a civilian government, not seeing the military in charge of the country by any means. They're not capable of equitably treating all of our citizens as citizens. And so I would just say that we should come together. I'm here to help. I think those two members of Congress that I mentioned are the ones that it's important to get your groups in front of to talk to. But protecting civilians and delivering aid is what I would say is sustaining. So there are so many important Sudanese-based organizations that one can give to, and really being mindful of where you buy your gold from, is critical. Understanding the gold trade and the flows of the gold trade, and how that really is blood gold for Sudan, and we're working on an initiative around that as well. But again, the website, I'll put it in the chat, is www.kandakamagazine.com, and we are very, very hopeful, to continue to work with World Beyond War. I saw Michael Beer is on the call, and I did see his question, not really question, but comment in the chat. Yes, all actors that have their hands on the situation, and are meddling, including Egypt, including Iran. Demilitarization, I think, is key. Too many people, too many lives lost, and too much bloodshed in this conflict. And so we have to do whatever we can do to stop the flow of arms and weapons into the country. That is, I think, the start to so much more that we want to do. So let's continue this discussion, and I'm so grateful to have been invited today, and continue doing whatever we can do to bring this conflict to an end.
We are grateful too to have you here, Jalila. We want to thank you all. Thank Samba, Jalila, Manal, our chapter coordinator in Senegal, who is behind this important event online, and all the participants who joined. 400 people registered for this event. This shows the interest that we have around the situation in Sudan. And we will be sending an email afterwards with the recording of this session, as well as additional resources. If I forwarded your questions to Manal, I think she will provide answers that we also add to the email that will be sent with the recording of this event in a few days. So we keep in touch. Write to me at africa@worldbeyondwar.org to volunteer to deliver our petition, and we will coordinate all that. And if you also have an important initiative that you think we can share with everyone here and people acting to make peace in Sudan, send them to me, and you can also include them when writing the follow-up email. Thank you so much, and goodbye to everyone.
Thank you.